So hello and welcome to iAttentive Healthcare Solutions webinar. We're excited to share our presentation on RefundManager and UnappliedTool with you today. My name is Chelsea Grover and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for iAttentive. We'd like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'd like to mention this webinar will be recorded, and we'll send a copy of the slides along with the recording within the next week. Next, for those of you who aren't familiar with iAttentive, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize specifically in NextGen healthcare, and we're good at getting data into, out of, around, and through NextGen. Basically, our goal in life is to make delighted clients by helping them get the absolute most out of their NextGen software investment. We are passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything NextGen. And we also have NextGen add-on productivity solutions for NextGen, including ChartGuard and RefundManager, which of course RefundManager will be covering today. Next, I wanted to mention an upcoming educational webinar that we'll be presenting next Wednesday on annual reporting and transformation for NCQA PCMH. In it, we'll help you understand the 2017 Patient-Centered Medical Home Standards and the new NextGen PCMH reporting suite and the benefits to becoming a patient-centered medical home. We realize there's a lot of information that's constantly changing, and we want to help you decipher what's important and what you need to know when it comes to maintaining your certification or starting the transformation in your practice. We understand what's required, best practices to be successful, and how to make your practice and providers productive and profitable. So that's going to be on Wednesday, and I'll be sending out an invitation to that tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. Okay, so back to today's presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll open the floor up to questions from you. We'll answer all the questions at the end, but you may type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel whenever they occur to you. And finally, for audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box to let us know so we can resolve them. And again, questions may be entered in the questions box. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Tom Seco is iAttentive's Business Development Manager and a subject matter expert on the products, and Joe Schultz is the Director of Product Solutions at iAttentive, which means that he and his team are the people that actually built these great products and are thus in a great position to demonstrate it. So Tom, I'm going to go ahead and pass the webinar off to you. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Chelsea. So as Chelsea mentioned, we are here to talk about our add-on tools for NextGen that increase the efficiencies within when using NextGen. The two tools that we're going to talk about today is the RefundManager tool and UnappliedTool, and then I'll give you just a couple slides on a little more in depth on who iAttentive is at the end. During the webinar, you're going to learn how the products work, and you're going to see how they can increase the efficiency within your practice or health center with the billing staffs. So let's start with RefundManager, and today's format is I'm going to go through a couple slides to introduce the product to you, and then I'll turn it over to Joe Schultz, and he's going to take you through a demonstration of the product. So we'll start with RefundManager, and then we'll come back and we'll do the same with the UnappliedTool tool as well. So with RefundManager, RefundManager streamlines and automates the way that you process credit balances on your patient accounts and issue refunds. And it allows you to quickly find the credit balance, the patient accounts that have credit balances on them. It allows you to quickly make a decision on what to do with that credit balance, whether to issue a refund or apply that credit to an account that has an open balance on it. RefundManager integrates with your accounting application, so it will move the information as far as the refund check information, the check name of the person receiving the check, the amount of the check, the address, the city, the state where the check is going to be sent. That information gets sent over to your accounting application, and you don't have to do any data entry there. Another nice feature within RefundManager is that it is multi-practice aware. So for the practices and health centers that have multiple practices set up with NextGen, you would be able to see a guarantor's account across the practices if there was a credit situation in each of the practices. This is a slide that just gives you a high-level overview of the process of processing credit balances, and then where does Refund Manager play within that process. So at the high end, you would either, a patient would call up and say, I have a credit on my account and I'd like to have a refund issued to me. Or in a more proactive manner, you may be managing your credits on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, some interval you're going through and managing your credit balances. Whether you do it in a reactive manner, meaning that the patient called up and says, I have a credit, or you do it in a proactive manner, you're going to go through a series of steps to determine what to do with that credit balance. You're going to look at the encounter details, you're going to look at the transaction details, you're going to look at the account details, and then you're going to make a decision on what to do with that credit. You're going to make a decision to issue a refund. You're going to make a decision to maybe apply that credit to an encounter that has an open balance on it, take some action on it. What Refund Manager does is it streamlines this upfront process in the way that we find the credit balances on the patient accounts through the search mechanisms and the filters that we've created. Makes it much easier for you to find them. And then in the way that we present the information to you on the screen, makes it much easier for you to make a decision on what to do with that credit balance. And you'll see this in the demonstration. As I mentioned, we integrate with your accounting application, so we move the information over to the accounting application. So you no longer have to enter in the name of the individual who's receiving the refund. You no longer have to enter in the address, the city, the state, the zip, the amount of the refund. It can be imported into your accounting application. So really the accountant just has to make sure that there's check paper in the printer and the checks are printing out properly. So that's the automation piece. We've eliminated the data entry on that end of it. And then on the back end, we take that printed check information as far as check number, check date, check amount, and we bring that back into NextGen and update the patient chart in NextGen with that information. So we've eliminated data entry there if your organization does that on a manual process right now. Some organizations do not do that, so this would be a feature or a benefit, another benefit that they could get out of Refund Manager. And you'll see like I said, you'll see this in the demonstration. There are 3 modules that make up Refund Manager. The Credit Scout module is the first module that you'll see when Joe goes through the demonstration for you. That's the one that allows you to find the credit balances on the patient account, allows you to take an action on that credit balance, whether to issue a refund or to distribute that credit to an encounter that has an open balance on it. Another nice feature within the Credit Scout is that you can task it out to the work log manager within NextGen as well. If maybe for some reason you don't have time to go through the research in this particular city, you want to maybe task it out to a later date to do that. The next module in the process that you'll see is the Batch Detective module, and that is the module that moves the refund information over to your accounting application. And then the last module that you'll see in the demonstration is the Import module, and that is the module that moves the printed check information back over into NextGen and updates the patient chart. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe, and Joe will take you through the demonstration.
All right, great. Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone who's joining us today. We're going to switch over to our demonstration machine, and in a second here, you should see NextGen Practice Management. What we're going to do today for these live demonstrations of the tools is take you through a quick high-level workflow. By no means will it be all-encompassing. However, if you have more questions, please feel free to submit them at the end, or you can reach out to us and schedule a more comprehensive demo with your practice on Refund Manager, UnappliedTool, or both of them. Both Refund Manager and UnappliedTool are written so their user interfaces are add-ons to NextGen Practice Management. So as part of the installation, we'll configure them so that they show up in your add-on menu. I'm going to go ahead and launch Refund Manager. When Refund Manager comes up, it's smart enough to go find out which database you're pointing at, whether that's ngTest, ngProd, what user you are. So it'll bring that information forward into the work Refund Manager is going to do in NextGen on your behalf. As Tom mentioned, Refund Manager streamlines and automates the process of handling credits in NextGen. Originally, when we wrote Refund Manager back in 2005, its focus was refunds, but it's really become a comprehensive credit handling tool for NextGen. So we're going to start out in the first module that Tom talked about, which is the Credit Scout, and that's the NextGen facing piece of Refund Manager. This is where you're going to find your credit balances and choose whether you want to refund them, distribute them, move the balance between charges or even encounters, or put them in the task log for something you want to handle later. We have several ways you can bring up the list of refunds that you're going to work, more appropriately, the list of credits. If you know what you're looking for, you can search by name. If you have a list of account or encounter numbers, you can plug those in here, comma separated. If you're just working a range of dates to clean everything up, you can put in the date range you want to work and then pull those up so you don't have to go and query your whole database and bring back a bunch of credits that you're not going to get to in the near future. On top of that, not only will we bring back the credits, but we'll help you qualify them using these filters. And we have filters that look at the charge balances and filters that look at the transaction balances. The charge balances are important because they let us know if the amount on the charge is in a credit state, and the transaction balances are important because those let us know if actual payments pushed it into a credit state as opposed to just adjustments. Refund Manager is multi-practice aware. So for example, if you have a practice and a surgery center and you need to move money between those occasionally, Refund Manager can help you with that. In addition, you can get a complete picture of a guarantor across the practices that you have access to under your user ID in NextGen. There's also a way to divvy these up by location, referring provider, department, financial class. You can even omit credits for patients who have appointments coming in the next several days. So that way you can take that credit and apply it toward the new appointment instead of sending them a check and making them come in and pay while the check's in transit to their house. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a list of credits that are out here in our NextGen database. And what we're going to see here in the results are the items that match the criteria up above. I'm going to go through some distributions. I'm going to task one out. We're going to go through some refunds. Now, distributions are the case where you have a credit somewhere on the account and you have money owed elsewhere on the account. And that could be charges within the same encounter, or it could be across encounters on the account. So in this case, if I look at Shirley here, we'll see we have a $50 patient credit. So I'm going to go ahead and expand that, and we can see what practice we're in, who owns the credit, whether it's one of the payers or the guarantor, the encounter information, and the charge information. If I want to see some more detail about the encounter, I can go ahead and click on the encounter number, and it'll pull up a screen that matches the transactions tab on the chart. So you can see, yes, there were a couple charges in here, and then there was an overpayment after that. So if we want to distribute the money because one of the charges might have been overpaid, we can let Refund Manager do that work for us. It'll take that money and move it forward oldest to newest by default. And the way we tell Refund Manager to go create the distribution transactions in NextGen is by clicking the checkbox under D for distribution. So we do that, and if we want to see what it's going to do, we can right mouse and get a preview of that function. On the left here is where it's pulling the money from. So encounter 1212, charge 99212 has a $50 credit, and we're going to subtract all $50 of that. What are we going to do with that? Well, let's look on the right side here. We're going to move it to the same encounter, but a different charge. So in this case, it was probably just misposted. They put the whole amount on one charge instead of splitting it up between both charges. So when we give it the go-ahead, instead of us creating transactions in NextGen, Refund Manager is going to do it on your behalf. Now, a more complicated one I can go through here is Oscar, and we can click the box to do the distribution. I can right mouse and see what it's going to do by default, a distribution preview again. So I can see on encounter 1213, I'm going to subtract $236 of the $295 credit and we're going to move it from encounter 1213 to encounter 1214 and pay off that one. In fact, after that, there's still $59 left if you're following the mouse pointer, and we can apply that 59 against the $67 on this other encounter. Now, if you decide, well, I'd really like to pay off this other encounter first, well, you can manually influence what's happening by doing a right mouse distribution matching. Then you pick the credit you want to use, you pick where you want to apply it, and you pair those up. And now it reduced the amount of credit I have to the 228 remaining. So I can do the 1215 first, get that one paid off, and then do the 1214. So we give you two ways to do those distributions, either automatically oldest to newest, or in this case, you can go ahead and pair them up manually. We'll see in a little bit, Refund Manager is going to create these transactions on our behalf. But first, I want to tackle a couple refunds. So let's go down here to Tiffany, who has a $92 credit. So I'm going to expand that, and we'll see that that credit is across two encounters, and it's actually due to two different payers. So we have $58 due to Aetna and $34.22 due to United. So if we want to expand these down to the encounter and the charge, we can certainly do that. I can expand the other one too. If we want to refund these back to the payers, we can click the refund box and refund them all. Or if we click lower, it'll just pick one of them that we want to refund. So in the case for our demo today, I want to send several transactions through, so I'm going to pick up high and refund them all. As mentioned before, you can click on the encounter to get more information about how this was, how this credit came about, what charges, what adjustments, what payments are out there. We also have screens that mimic the financial summary and account summary in NextGen, again, to give you one spot to do the research instead of having to toggle back and forth between Refund Manager and NextGen Practice Management. So we're going to leave this one where we're going to do refunds to the payers. And then I'm going to pick another one to do, which is Jennifer down here, where we have $122 patient credit, and that's split across three different encounters. So again, as discussed before, we can click low and just do any one of the encounters, or we can go ahead and do all the encounters. I'm going to pick a couple more to send through just so we have some data to show you how fast it goes creating the transactions in NextGen for the refunds and the distributions. In fact, I'm also going to take one of these and task it into the work log. Maybe this was one where we looked at it, we went into the account summary, and it was just really messy, and I don't want to handle that right now, or I have someone else that's going to handle those ones that are just have all kinds of errant posts on them. Now that we've selected what we want to do, just using checkboxes, we can say, okay, Refund Manager, go ahead and create these transactions to do the work in NextGen. So we right mouse, process selected items. We get our parameters that we're going to use for our work log tasks to put things into the NextGen work log. We got our transaction codes that are going to be used for the refunds that we're going to do. And we've got our transaction code that's going to be used for the distribution. I haven't done a work log task yet in this environment, so I'm going to pick which transaction type. These are your standard NextGen codes and transaction types out of file maintenance. So now, instead of us putting some stuff to tasks, creating some refund transactions, doing some distributions, instead of taking all the time to type all that in manually, we're going to click the Start button, and Refund Manager is going to go create 8 refund transactions on your behalf, just like that. It's going to say, hey, do you want to put this other one in the work log still? Yep, we'll go ahead with that. And then last, the distributions, where we're moving the money around. It's going to give us a quick summary of what's happening for all the items we picked. And there, it just created those distribution transactions. So it's really fast for streamlining the refund process. You still get to pick what you do and don't want to refund, what you do and don't want to move. But when you've decided what you want to do, Refund Manager will make the actual work of doing that instant. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. So now we've created our refunds and distributions. Well, those exist in a batch in NextGen, right? Just like if you did them manually, they'd be part of a NextGen batch. So here's our batch that just got populated. I'm going to go ahead and balance this out and post it. And then we'll go in and we'll look at one of the distributions and look at one of the refunds, and we'll take the refund through to the accounting system, then back into NextGen. So let me, now that this is balanced, post. So let's take a look at our distribution. So this one down here for Oscar, we had a couple of them. So we can see here in our account summary, here are the distributions for moving the money. The net is 0 because we did a positive and negative of the same amount. So we took 67 from here and applied it there. If we go into the encounter, here are the transactions on 12/13 where we took the money, and here are the other encounters where they're receiving the money. We also document in the notes what batch it was part of and then where it came from this encounter, this charge, and it went to this other encounter, this other charge. Additionally, along the way, we create encounter notes for you too, so you have that documentation. So now let's look at a refund. So let me pull up one of the encounters where we did a refund. And we're going to watch that as we go through the system. So let's take this 1207 for Jennifer. And we'll see, again, we have the note, we have the batch that it was inserted into, this refund transaction here. Here's our encounter note. Gets created on your behalf by Refund Manager. So we're not just creating the transactions themselves, but we're creating documentation in NextGen to go along with what's going on. So now we have these refunds sitting in NextGen. We have these distributions, which we're pretty much done with, though, you know, we moved the money, but the refunds, we now need to get checks cut. Typically, what people used to do is create spreadsheets or reports, send them over to accounting. Accounting would have to key in all that information. Well, Refund Manager automates that interface into accounting. We support about a dozen accounting systems directly and have quite a few more that we create generic CSV and XML files. So let's go back to Refund Manager and go into the next step of the workflow, which is Tom mentioned earlier in a slide, is the batch detective. This will pull the money out of NextGen and send it to the accounting system. So I'm going to do a search for batches that contain one or more refund transactions. I'm going to pick that batch and I'm going to do a right mouse export. It's going to give us a screen. In this case, we're doing consolidation before sending it to the accounting system. Jennifer had 3 encounters that had refunds, so it's only going to send 1 check. Some accounting systems will do this within the accounting system itself. So we're sending over 5 checks to our accounting system in our demo environment here today, which is QuickBooks. It's, you know, one of the many we support. And instead of keying all that information into the accounting system, and by the way, it's not just sending over the demographic for the vendor and not just sending over the payment, but it's also doing GL code mapping for a lot of the accounting interfaces. So you can set up how you want your GL coded. So now that's been pushed to the accounting system. So instead of spending, you know, hours or days doing data entry, depending on what your refund volume is, it goes over there automatically. And accounting loves it because they get out of the data entry business. And it also cuts down on errors, right? Because manual data entry can lead to typos, and you really don't want that with dollar amounts. So here's our checks that were just pushed over. Right now, they have no check numbers yet. They're waiting to be printed. So accounting goes in, does a quick review, prints the batch of checks when they're ready to. Confirm that they're all printed, and now we have check numbers. Well, that's great on the accounting side. So accounting has this information, it's documented. We've brought over, you know, encounter numbers and dates of service. So all this stuff is in the accounting system on their behalf, but now we want to get some of the accounting information back into NextGen. So it happens at a later time after the checks are printed, they go to the import module, they find their batch that they exported out to the accounting system and tell it to go ahead and import those payments. So now to close out the workflow here, we go back into NextGen. I'm going to switch between encounters real quick so it refreshes. When we export it out, it created another encounter note. Again, from the NextGen side, you can see the refund was created. You can see it was sent to accounting. And then on the transaction, once it's imported, you can see the check was cut, the date, and because this was several encounters rolled onto one check, you can see the total check amount. So you get that whole workflow for you with a great deal of streamlining and automation. We start at the batch detective, find our credits, decide what to do with the credits. For the refunds then that we found, we export them out to the accounting system, and then we bring back in the check information. Tom, I'll turn it back to you, then we'll jump into the Unapplied tool.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So that was a great demonstration of how you can increase the efficiency within the billing staff of handling credits and refunds. As Joe mentioned, now the next product we'll talk about is the Unapplied tool. And the Unapplied tool allows you to efficiently manage your unapplied balances. We know that unapplied balances. We know that unapplied balances can grow over a period of time. So we've created the Unapplied tool to allow you to better handle that process. The Unapplied tool has been recently released over the past year or so, but it's a combination of years of requests from our clients. In the past 8 to 10 years, we've been working with our clients to manage their unapplied balances. They've asked us for scripts on how to manage them. And what we found is over the years, or over the practices, that unapplied balances get created for many different reasons. But we also found that practices and health centers want to manage those credit balances according to their own business rules. So what we did is we took all of those scripts that we've written and brought them together into an application to allow you to better manage them on how you want to actually pick and choose how you want to manage your unapplied balances. The tool works at both the encounter level and the account level. As I mentioned, you can select from any combination of rules, and you'll see this as Joe goes through the demonstration. It allows you to move an account into a credit state. So if the account has an unapplied balances and you're applying it to the encounters, and then there's still some applied money left over, you can move that into a credit state and be able then to refund it using a tool like RefundManager to refund it as well. So the Unapplied tool and RefundManager can work hand in hand together as well. So what I'll do now is we'll turn it over to Joe, and he'll take you through a demonstration of the Unapplied tool.
All right, great. Let's go ahead and jump into the Unapplied tool. The Unapplied tool is actually two pieces. There's a user interface that runs as a NextGen add-on, and then to do the heavy lifting, there's a stored procedure that gets scheduled overnight, either in the database or in the BBP. If you think about unapplieds, there's really two sets of them. You have your encounter unapplieds and your account unapplieds. The way the unapplied processing works with Unapplied tool is it goes through two loops, one loop to handle the encounters and one loop to handle the accounts. Now, our goal with Unapplied tool was really to bring to market many of the unique situations we've run into in handling unapplieds and getting them down to the line items that really haven't been tackled yet in the NextGen marketplace. So there's some things in the Unapplied tool that, kind of match the capabilities built into NextGen, such as, are you just matching an exact patient amount? But there's a lot of unique things that the Unapplied tool does that you'd probably have to get custom code written to do them otherwise. So as Tom mentioned, if you're using it with Refund Manager, we give you the ability to apply over the patient amount, so you end up with a credit on the line item. And then with that credit, you can go ahead and issue a refund through Refund Manager. If you don't want to do it that way, you could do the unapplied up to the patient amount and later take that remaining amount and move it up to the account. We also support the ability to do kind of a fuzzy unapplied. Let's say you have a copay issue and you're trying to get all those moved down, and you just want to force them down if they're a copay amount, because you know you can get the majority of them taken care of through automation, and you may have to clean up a small amount of them. So we can click here that says, you know what, if it's one of these specific amounts, then go ahead and force it down onto one of the line items, and we can enter in our favorite copay amounts, or other amounts that we're looking for. And you can keep adding to this list, and it'll go ahead and process those amounts and move them down. So you could turn off these ones and just use that one. So you get to pick the combination of rules that you want to apply here. So it's really a dozen years of experience writing these different scripts that we've now aggregated together and given you the ability to pick what rules you want to put into play. Similarly, on the account unapplied, you have balances that come from other encounters, and you have balances that were just directly put onto the account. So we give you some options here. Like, do you just want to apply to the first matching amount, or do you want to start at the oldest patient amount due and go forward? What do you want to do with any remaining amounts? Do you want to just continue to stack it all on the newest encounter with a credit? If there isn't one, do you just want to put it on the overall newest encounter? Things like that. So up top here, we're picking these overall rules. Down on the bottom, we're influencing the scope of those rules. Perfect example, do we just, if for encounters that we're moving money around in or moving money down to with the account unapplied, do we just want to process certain providers or locations? If you're working with a really large database or you're testing, these are great tools to limit the amount of work that the unapplied tool is going to do in any one execution. We also have the ability to apply by priority. You can apply first to any specific SIMs or modalities, or you can limit your unapplieds depending on the rules you selected to various SIMs and modalities. You can skip specific SIMs too. So if you have SIMs you're using to hold money for deposits, you can say, you know what, don't, take that money, right? We're keeping it for a special case. You can also ignore encounters with specific transaction codes. Again, if those encounters exist, purely to hang on to money for a future use. And also, because unapplieds is primarily a patient issue, let's make sure the insurance is zero, right, before we start moving money around. On the account side, we have the ability to influence the scope of the accounts being created. We can pick the maximum number of accounts we want to do. We can say, you know what, we're testing. We only want to get the people whose names start with A or B. We also maybe want to say, you know what, we're not going to do through automation amounts greater than $1,000, right? So we'll do the 0 to 999 through the automation, and $1,000 and up, we'll do those manually still. And then we can make sure, again, within an account that all encounters, their insurances must be zero before taking action on them. So what we're doing here, again, just the quick recap, is picking which encounter loop rules we want for the unapplied, picking which account loop rules we want for the unapplied, and then down in the middle here is where we scope down what encounters and what accounts we're going to look at. So we set our rules with this. We can pick to run once or run nightly, and then in production, we just hit save. In that night, those rules would be picked up. You can have several people setting several different sets of rules, and they'd be processed overnight, and you come in the next day and you'd have batches available to review and then post. If you're just getting to the point where you're trying out your rules and you want to see if you're going to get any results, we have this ability to do a quick test where it won't actually create the batches or transactions, but it'll tell you what operations it's going to perform and then the encounters and the accounts that it's going to be performed on. and you can go into NextGen and look those up and make sure the rule is doing what you're expecting it to do. If you decide, you know what, I'm in test and I want to go ahead and run this interactively and not wait overnight because we're not going to impact anyone, I'm alone on the test or train system, there is a run button available, and that'll go ahead and create the transactions to do the actual work. And this gives you the ability to come over here into NextGen and review those batches and see what the Unapplied tool is doing on your behalf. So the whole point of the Unapplied tool is to help you with those balances that are not on line items. Refund Manager is handling your credits that are on line items. The Unapplied tool is handling your credits that have not been pushed down for line items. So they work very complementary to each other. And the goal here was to give you a tool that'll automate the majority of your unapplied issues. It gives you a wide range of rules to choose from based on your unapplied scenarios that you've run into in your practice. We've seen, quite a number of different ones over the years, and we've taken them and basically created a user interface so that you don't have to have custom scripts created for each one. You can just pick the rules you want to use for a period of time, run those, create your batches, get your unapplieds moves, and then as you develop other or discover other situations, you can go ahead and adjust those rules and tackle those other ones too. So the Unapplied tool, again, user interface, it's a NextGen add-on, has a script that runs overnight and does the heavy lifting for you. You get a batch the next day. It can be run interactively in limited scenarios for testing and setting up the parameters for your rules. Tom, I'll turn it back to you, and then we'll take questions at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. So we just took a look at two add-on products that increase the efficiency and effectiveness of billing staffs using NextGen. Look at the Refund Manager product and the Unapplied tool. As Joe mentioned, we're going to take questions in just a couple minutes here, and if you have an interest in seeing any one of these two products or both of these products in a more in-depth demonstration, get in touch with myself and we can get one scheduled for you. That way you can take a look at it and be able to ask questions as it specifically pertains to your organization. So a little bit about who iTentiv is, take you just through two slides of who we are, give you a little more idea of what it is that we do as well. We were founded in 2003. We have 20 plus years of experience with NextGen. We have 47 employees in the company, most of which are consultants that move from practice to practice, health center to health center, working with the organizations to get as much value, as Jesse mentioned in the beginning, much value out of NextGen as possible. We work with you to improve the workflows and business processes in that process, as well as reporting. In this time frame, we've worked with over 350, 400 clients that use NextGen. If you take the 2003 into 20 years, they do not add up, and the reason for that is iTentiv started out as the IT department for a medical organization. And back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the business mantra back then was focus on what you do best and outsource the rest, the medical organization was going to outsource the IT group. And the leaders of the IT group said, well, if you want to do that, what we would like to do is form our own company and provide services back to you. So they agreed to do that, and as I mentioned, from that point forward, we worked with over 350 to 400 clients that use NextGen. And we've become a strategic partner with NextGen as well. As I mentioned, what it is that we do, we have consulting services where we have consultants that move from practice to practice, health center to health center, working with them to improve workflows, improve revenue cycle, improve business processes. We have a group of developers that can customize the templates. We have a group of developers that create these types of products that we just talked about, Refund Manager, the Unapplied tool. We also have a couple other products called ChartGuard, which is business continuity. and downtime preparedness tool, chart card on demand, which allows you to print charts in an on-demand at the moment type situation. So we have products like that to help improve both efficiencies and effectiveness, not only on the PM side, but also the AHR side. We have hosting services and IT managed services where we can host your environment in our hosting center. We also can provide managed services back to you, meaning we can manage your desktops, your laptops, your tablets, your printers, your local area networks, things like that. We can provide support, help desk support, and then we are a NextGen partner and authorized reseller as well. So as I mentioned, next steps, we'll take questions at this point in time, and then if you would like to have an in-depth demonstration or ask any other specific questions, we can get that scheduled as well. Turn it back over to Chelsea.
Great, thank you so much, Tom, and thank you everybody else for joining us again today. If you do have questions, you can put them in the questions area of the webinar control panel, probably on the right of your screen. We only have 2, so I'm sure that we'll have time to get to them, so don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, I will just start in the order that we received them. For Refund Manager, what's the installation process like?
The installation process for Refund Manager is very straightforward. We start by doing a kickoff call where we pull in the stakeholders, accounting, IT, back office, and we'll coordinate the different activities that need to happen, such as, GL mapping and training and things along those lines. From there, we'll do the installation in the test system. That normally takes an hour or less for us to run the installer and get the initial setup configured. And from there, we'll give you the training videos and user guide. After you've had a chance to review those, we'll do a 60 to 90-minute call to walk through some refunds and let you try out the system. And then once you're comfortable with the system, we'll go ahead and do your production install. Now, this may happen over a couple weeks or a couple months. We'll really move at your pace depending on your team's availability to get Refund Manager installed. If you want it done quickly, we'll move quickly. If you have other projects you're trying to weave in between, we can certainly move at a slower pace for that too.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. Next question. Regarding Refund Manager, if a posting error occurs and an adjustment creates a credit, will it recognize that and let us know, or will it try to refund?
There's a couple different ways you can handle those scenarios in Refund Manager. We have those filters that can look at the charges and transactions, and the transactions will really be the tell-all because your adjustments are going to be in there, but more important, your payments are going to be in there. So that'll help filter those out. Additionally, we give you those tools, the Encounter Transactions tab view and the Account Summary view, so you can see what's going on there. This is why we use the term streamlining for the part facing NextGen, because you still get to make the decision on whether you want to do the refund or not, but then we streamline the creation of those transactions in NextGen for you based on if you click the checkbox or not.
Perfect, thank you, Joe. Next question. Does the Unapplied tool only work for credits not on line items?
Correct. The Unapplied tool is really just that. It's looking at your unapplied credits that have not been moved down to line items yet. They've been either Encounter Unapplied or Account Unapplied, and they're just sitting out there kind of in limbo, waiting for some decision to be made. For line item credits, that's where Refund Manager comes in, handling the distributions and the refunds. So again, they're very complementary tools, with one handling the unapplied credits and the other one handling the line item credits.
Thanks, Joe. Next question. How do you support new versions of NextGen?
We've been keeping up with NextGen since we started creating these add-on products back in 2005. We run it on our own internal systems. We work with our clients as they upgrade their test environments. We can contact our help desk and we'll set up the tools in your test environment so you can do your full vetting of NextGen, not just the NextGen pieces, but all the ancillary pieces also. So we wrote Refund Manager back on PM 3.4, and we've taken it all the way up through 5.9 UD3, and we'll keep going beyond.
Thank you, Joe. Next question. With how Refund Manager puts notes on the encounter, is there a way to have it put the note on the account level?
Currently, the notes are all done on the encounter level since that's where the transactions exist. We could look at the notes on the account as a future enhancement. Most of the requests that come in for future enhancements end up making it into the product at some point. That's how it's evolved over the last 14 years. A lot of the functionality that's available today is because people like yourselves asked for it.
Great, thanks. Next question. You mentioned you'd send out an email summary of today's seminar in about a week. The demonstrations were great. Would those be included, or do we have to call in to a seminar on future dates? I'll send out an email with a link to both the slides where the demonstration isn't, but it'll also have a link to the recording. So if you want to watch the recording again, you can scroll through, scan into the point where we're doing the live demonstrations on the recording, because it'll be on YouTube. So you can watch them there. Otherwise, you can also reach out to us if you want to set up a one-on-one. You see both Tom and Joe's information on the screen, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to go through a detailed demonstration one-on-one with you to cover areas that you might have some specific questions or interest in. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we've received. We'll wait just one more minute in case anybody else is still in the middle of typing. I want to thank Joe and Tom for taking the time to do this demonstration today, and again, everybody for joining us. Looks like you'll get about 15 minutes of your day back, so, enjoy that. And besides that, I hope that you have a great rest of the week and enjoy the end of summer here. Tom, Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yep, again, thank you everyone, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Great, thanks everyone. And like I said, I'll be sending out that email with the recording within the next week. And tomorrow I'll be sending out an invitation to the Patient-Centered Medical Home webinar that will be happening next week. So keep your eyes out for both of those emails and have a great day.